You know what's significant about this Bible? First Bible printed in English in America? You know who printed it? The Congress of the United States printed this. Whoa, time out. The Founding Fathers printed the first Bible in English in America? Why would they do that? They tell us, in the records of Congress included here, they tell us that this Bible is, quote, a neat edition of the Holy Scriptures for the use of our schools, end quote. I thought they didn't want the Bible in schools. Let's go back to the first public school law ever passed in America, 1647, passed in Connecticut, passed in Massachusetts. Do you know what the title of the first public school law in America was? It was called the Old Deluder Satan Act. It was called that because it says it being the one chief project that an old deluder Satan to keep us from the knowledge of the Scriptures that he has in former time. Since Satan's number one purpose is to keep us out of the Scriptures, we're not letting it happen in America. That's why we're starting public schools. For the next 320 years, the Bible was part of public education in America, hands down. The first time it was not was on June the 17th of 1963 when the Supreme Court issued a double decision in Abbott and Shimp and Murray Corlett where they said, you know, this thing about the Bible in schools anymore, we're not going to do that. You know, for 320 years we did. What we think today is we think the way it's been for the last 50 years is the way it's always been. No, not by a long shot. This Bible by itself proves it. Do you know that Bible even had a congressional endorsement in front of it? That Bible said, resolved, the United States and Congress assembled recommend this edition of the Bible to the inhabitants of the United States. This is in the American Revolution? Yes, it was not a secular revolution. In every aspect, we tried to keep God, we tried to acknowledge God, we tried to see the principles, we tried to keep the Scriptures there. And even when we signed the peace treaty the next year in 1783, and by the way, the four people you see on the peace treaty signatures there, the guy on the right, halfway off the screen, is David Hartley, the British ambassador. Moving from right to left, you see the three Americans, Ben Franklin, John Adams, and John Jay. Those are the four that signed the treaty. If you want to see the treaty, you go to Washington, D.C., to the State Department. You go up on the 6th floor of the John Quincy Adams State Drawing Room, and you get to see the treaty. And if you look at the treaty, you'll see the four wax seals. See on the bottom left there, David Hartley, the British ambassador, then John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, John Jay, and you see at the top left, there's 10 articles to the treaty that established American independence. We declared it with the Declaration. We established it with this peace treaty. And by the way, look at the title the Founding Fathers put on the peace treaty. See the title on the top right? In the name of the most holy and undivided Trinity. I could be wrong, but that sounds Christian to me. They say, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, a Trinitarian invocation, in the name of the most holy and undivided Trinity. And today we're told, oh no, they wouldn't want under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. They wouldn't want in God we trust out in public. Really? When they have acknowledgments like that on official documents, it was that way throughout the American Revolution. And John Adams, who saw it, John Adams, who signed not only the Declaration, but he's one of only three that signed the peace treaty 8 years later. John Adams said it as clearly as could be said. The general principles on which the fathers achieved independence were the general principles of Christianity. Now, we spend a lot of time today saying, no, he didn't know what he was talking about. I love collecting articles from professors and others. Here's one that ran recently, Stephen Morris, who said the Founding Fathers were not Christians. I don't care what John Adams said, he didn't know what he's talking about. I love it that 200 years later, we're so much smarter than the guys who were actually there, who actually saw it, you know. But we got PhDs, so we know what we're talking about. They didn't have PhDs. So we get articles like this, and here's the LA Times. The LA Times says America's unchristian beginnings. They said the Founding Fathers were deists who rejected the divinity of Jesus. Whole chain of newspapers out on the East Coast ran this article, said the authors of the Declaration were enemies of Christ. And I speak at law schools and universities across the nation. Last several years, the most widely used book I've seen has been one called The Godless Constitution. We specifically tell the next generation of Americans that America has lasted this long because we've been secular from the beginning. We have a godless constitution, and that's why we've been such a great nation. Now, how do we know it's a godless constitution? Because as you just saw in the articles, all the Founding Fathers who wrote it were all godless. I mean, the Founding Fathers were atheists and agnostics and deists, and you can't expect a bunch of secular guys to give you something religious. No, godless founders give you a godless constitution. Now, a lot of people buy into that, and I was recently at a major law school, a very prestigious law school, and I put up the picture of the 56 signers of the Declaration. I said, students, all these postgraduate kids in law school, I said, who do you recognize up there? And everyone instantly found Thomas Jefferson, everyone instantly found Benjamin Franklin. And that's exactly where it stopped. And I said, no, wait a minute. There's 56 up there, and you found two? Give me some of the others. And I said, let's just go across the front row. You point out to me which one of these guys is Richard Henry Lee, which one is George Clinton, which one is Sam Adams. Just continue across the front row. Which one is Charles Carroll, and which one is Robert Morris, and which one is Benjamin Rush. And let's go back up to the second row. Which one is Stephen Hopkins, and which one is William Williams. And back to the front row, the guy leaning on his arm, that's Elbridge Gerry, and right beside him is Robert Tree Payne. And I just go through the other 54 names, and they say, who? We've never heard of those names before. Isn't it interesting that we've all been trained to recognize the two least religious founding fathers? We can find Jefferson, we can find Franklin, we can't find any others, but it doesn't matter. They're all like Jefferson and Franklin anyway. Really? Did you know out of the 56 guys who signed the Declaration of Independence, 29 of them had seminary degrees? That's not bad for a bunch of atheists to have seminary degrees, and apparently that's what we had going on back then. See, we used to know better than that. We would never have bought into the fact that they were secular or they wanted a secular nation because we knew our history too well. There's actually a great history book that was printed in 1848 that we used in public schools for generations. It's called Lives of the Signers of the Declaration of Independence. We've actually reprinted that, but it has 4, 5, 6 pages on every one of those 56 signers. And in public schools for years, we knew everyone. We knew their faith, we knew their character, we knew all about them, but we don't today. See, folks we don't talk about today include folks like signer of the Declaration, John Witherspoon. Now, John Witherspoon, one of the most prominent signers of the Declaration, he served on over 100 committees in Congress, including the Board of War. He's George Washington's boss in the Revolution. He's also the president of Princeton University. He's also the best-known gospel evangelist in American history back then. Has more than a dozen volumes of published gospel sermons. Americans couldn't wait for his next volume of sermons to come out. And he's also responsible for 2 American editions of the Bible, including this one right here. This is original from 1791. This is done by Dr. John Witherspoon, signer of the Declaration. This is considered America's very first family Bible. He did this Bible so that families could have Bible studies together. Now, because he is such a well-known founder back then, he has numerous writings. And if you read his writings, you'll find statements like this. He says, I entreat you in the most earnest manner to believe in Jesus Christ, for there is no salvation in any other. Acts 4:12. If you're not reconciled to God through Jesus Christ, if you're not clothed with the spotless robe of His righteousness, you must forever perish. That sounds kind of evangelical to me. I mean, I'm not used to atheists talking like this. And apparently he's one of our atheist founding fathers. You know, other founding fathers we don't talk about include Charles Thompson. Charles Thompson, Thompson was one of only 2 guys who signed the original Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July. It was the 19th of July that the founders got an idea and said, why don't we create a declaration we can all sign? So on the 2nd of August is when they signed the one that we see and celebrate. But the 4th of July, Charles Thompson was one of the only 2 who signed it. But Charles Thompson is also a theologian. He's responsible for this work right here. This is the original. This is called Thompson's Bible. You can still get this in Christian bookstores today. Now, not to be confused with Thompson's Chain Reference Bible. That's Thompson. This is Thomson. This is the first translation of the Greek Septuagint into English. It took Charles 25 years to make this translation, and we still sell it today as one of the most scholarly of American translations of the Bible. And he was very outspoken about his faith as well. He says very simply, I am a Christian. I believe only in the Scriptures and in Jesus Christ, my Savior. That's kind of pointed. I mean, that's just real simple, real succinct. And then you have founding fathers like Dr. Benjamin Rush. He is certainly one of my favorite founding fathers. We don't study him much anymore, but when he died in 1813, the other founders still alive, like John Adams, said Benjamin Rush is one of the 3 most notable founding fathers. John Adams said, you got George Washington, Ben Franklin, and Benjamin Rush, and we don't have a clue who this guy is today. And he had such an impact on America. You see, among other things, he started 5 universities. 3 of them still go today. He's called the father of public schools under the Constitution. He did the first faith-based prison movement in America. He's the leader of the civil rights movement. He started the first abolition society in America. He helped found the first black denomination in America, the AME denomination. On top of that, he served in 3 presidential administrations. He is called the father of American medicine. 3,000 students got their medical degree with his signature on their diploma. He started the American College of Physicians. I can go through all the stuff he did. You know, we knew exactly who Benjamin Rush was, but we don't today. And because of that, we have no clue that this is the man who started the Sunday school movement in America. Did you know a signer of the Declaration of Independence started the Sunday school movement in America? He's also the man who penned this work right here. This is the Constitution for the very first Bible society ever done in America. Now, why would he start a Bible society? He tells us. He says, if we can get Americans to read the Bible, he said 2 things will happen. Number 1, they'll become Christians. They'll find out how to have a personal relationship with God through Jesus Christ. He said, number 2, if we can get them to read the Bible and obey what they read in the Bible, He said, we'll solve all of our social problems. We won't have crime. We won't have slavery. He went through all the things we wouldn't have. So he wants a Bible in the hand of every American. And in looking to get a Bible in the hands of every American, he came up with a new way to print books. It's called stereotyped printing. It's an early form of mass production. But here's the result. This is the first stereotyped Bible ever done in the history of the United States. It's done by sign of the Declaration, Dr. Benjamin Rush. This is the Bible designed that you could buy it cheap and give it out to your friends. This is what you use to get them to read the Scriptures and bring them to Christ.